Hello everyone, welcome to this YouTube video. I want to get some things off the table real quick. That, one, this video is very important to me. It's a topic I have a lot of, I believe very strongly in, and I want to make this very clear. This video is not room for argument, it's not room for bigotry, it's not room for hatred. Period. This video is purely to discuss my beliefs on how I think we should do debates, and how I think and you're more than welcome to debate, like, make your own arguments against us in the comments, but there will be no place and no tolerance for being a dick to people and just being a straight up asshole. That is no place here. Number two. Number three, if you intend to debate people, here's some things I would like to lay out, just as, like, a common, like, not as a common sense thing, but, like, just as a before you go into it thing of, like, one, these people may never change their minds. They may be very close minded, and you may not be the person to get to them. But don't write them off as a lost cause. You may just not be the person to be able to break the shell, but make sure that you're not using up all your energy. Make sure you recognize when it's going into a loop, and if you realize it's going into a loop, you're not getting anywhere, politely call off the conversation, and do it, so that way, one, if you do it in a good enough way, which I'm going to be completely honest, I haven't fully learned how to do yet. If you cut it off in a way where they don't feel attacked, even if you weren't the one to break the show, someone else might be able to come along and break the show later on. And I think that's very important because I think the second someone feels like they're like in a lost cause and they're wrong, they will become very defensive and we won't get anywhere. Number two, I think it's very important to know that in the moment of the debate, they might not come to your side. They might not. They just. But it's important to keep in mind people's views do change, and that the end goal isn't to inherently obviously, yeah, it's kind of like we want them to come to our side, but the end goal is to get our information out there that sticks with them and makes them think about the world and makes them think about it. And I think if we can do that, that is a net positive. And, later on they might be like, huh, okay, well, I can see what they mean by this. And, yeah, you know what? Yeah, I do agree with them on this now that I think about it, right? And so, here's my way of going about it. One, make sure they do not feel attacked. If they, again, even if you're not trying to, if someone feels attacked, they will become very defensive and they will become very combative, which goes against the nature of what we're trying to do here. And so to avoid that, the way I like to go about it is be like, hey, look, here's my belief system, I believe in X, Y, and Z. I believe in it for these reasons. Here's all the, fundamental foundations for my belief system. And here's what here's some things like I kind of agree with, but I'm not like fully on board with, and I think I would rather do this way personally if it was up to me. And then here's why I disagree with your belief system in a very polite way. I'd be like, I don't really, I disagree with you on why Dr. Pepper is the best drink because it's a very the taste it's just not very sweet or it's too sweet or whatever, right? Make sure it stays calm and civilized, as you never want to start a screaming match. As the second screaming match starts, both parties have lost. There is no winning there. There's no information being gathered. It's just two people being mad. And that's not a good thing. And as I mentioned earlier, I think a good way to combat this is being open about the flaws in your belief system and what you would change about if you had the ability to. Here's what I would fix in XYZ if there's something to fix. Like if I'm talking about, like, let's say a system I don't like. I don't really like the PS3 and how it handles its file system. That's some nerdy bullshit example, but you know what I mean, right? I would rather, if it was up to me and I knew how to do it, or with the information, here's how I would do it, like change it to XFAT or whatever, right? And because when you point out the flaws in your own belief system and how you would change it, it helps open up the other person because they see you aren't being as combative and you're not going into it with a head of like, fuck you, I'm right, you're wrong. And when they see you're not going at it with that mentality, they're more likely to open up to you. They're more likely to be less defensive, and you're more likely to get shit done. And that's a very good thing, because the second you're no longer screaming about it, the second you're being civil about it, that's the best way to get information out there. And another thing is a rule I forgot to mention: be ready to get screamed at. It's not gonna be fun. Some people, it's mainly like, some people, they're just gonna scream at you, and you just have to sit there, be calm, and do your best. Like, hey, look, I get why you're upset. I wasn't trying to upset you. I apologize. That wasn't my intention with whatever I said. Um, you let me reword that, right? Something to that effect, right? Because again, the end goal here is get information out there, and I think once we get information out there, that is a net positive. And I think the way we currently handle debates online of just screaming matches on whether it be the political debates of like I saw a post the other day of like this guy being like, yeah, I'm not even gonna research my debate. This guy's so fucking stupid. I can beat him without researching. That's inherently wrong because going into that debate, the other person's already feeling attacked, so they're not going to want to come to the other person's side. There's no incentive to believe there. And another thing is, we have to understand the core of their belief system on why they believe this way and what led them to come to this belief system. Because we can tackle surface level issues all day, but that won't change anything until we get to the core underneath of what's underlying it and what led them to believe this way. Don't demean them, don't insult them for their beliefs, even if you inherently completely disagree with them. But try to understand the core and try to be polite and be understanding and do the best you can. And with all of this, I think that's the ethical way to do it. I'm sure there's other things I missed in the spur of the moment, but I really do believe that's, the basic core underlying of it. And, maybe one day I could do debates on here and what about topics I care about. And, I think that really would be fun. And if you've enjoyed this video and what I've discussed so far, I think it would mean a lot, and I hate to be the guy that's like, oh, like, comment, share, or whatever. But if you've agreed with what I say, at least on the fundamental level of we need to get information out there, please like, share, follow, comment, all that fun stuff. Because that pushes this video in the algorithm, hype it, and then that helps get information out there if you comment and, do all that stuff, pushes in the algorithm. And again, even if you fundamentally disagree with what I've said here, please, if you can, get this information out there, because the more information, the better. Thank you again for watching all this if you've tuned in this long. Good night.